Okay, so for this video, we're going to be reviewing figurative language elements, many of which we will find in our forms of reading and writing that we will be doing throughout the year. To begin with, there is a difference between figurative and literal language. Literal language means that the words that are being used exactly as they are said, okay? So if I'm saying the car is blue, it literally means the car is blue. If I say he caught the football, it means he literally caught the football, okay? Whereas if you're looking at figurative language, you have to kind of make an inference and figure out what the person's trying to say. So if I have a person that says, I've got your back, they don't literally have their back. It means they are supporting you. If I hear somebody say, oh, you're a doll, they're not referring to them as a literal doll. It's a figurative thing. And you have to infer that, well, what are they trying to do in comparing the person to a doll? And there's a couple of different forms of figurative language that we're going to review. The first one is going to be a simile. A simile is a comparison of two things using like or as. The examples, the metal was twisted like a ribbon. She is as sweet as candy. The metal's being compared to the ribbon, the way it was twisted. The girl is being compared to candy because she is so sweet. The important thing to remember about similes is that a comparison must be made. A lot of times people see the word like or as in a sentence or in a line in a poem or in a paragraph, and they're like, oh, that's got to be a simile. But it has to compare somebody or something to something else. So you cannot say, I like pizza, because nothing's being compared. But if you look at the simile, the moon is like a pizza, then there's a comparison there, which means it's a simile. Next to a simile is the metaphor, okay? And again, two things are being compared, but you're not using the words like or as. All the world is a stage. Men are dogs. Her heart is stone, okay? Her eyes were the ocean. You have to think about what two things are being compared, and then what is that comparison trying to say? Personification is kind of an easy one because if you look at the word person in personification, you can kind of get the idea that you're giving human traits to objects or ideas. You're giving person traits or the traits a person would have to something that's not human. Okay, so animals, objects, thoughts or ideas, all of those can be personified. The sunlight danced. Sunlight can't dance, but you're personifying it. People can dance, so then you can make it into personification. Water on the lake shivers. People shiver, water does not. You're creating personification. The streets are calling me. Again, people call other people. Streets don't call you. So if you're trying to personify something, you're asking yourself, what is the author trying to get me to visualize? Or what is the author trying to get me to think? Hyperbole is an easy one because it is an exaggeration. And it's supposed to have a strong feeling attached to it or have some sort of effect. I like to think of hyperbole the way I think of exaggerating things as hyper people exaggerate what they're doing. So if you're thinking of a hyperbole, they are being hyper. Examples, I will love you forever. Okay, you can't do that. It's an exaggeration. My house is 1,000,000 miles away. Again, you would think it's 1,000,000 miles away, but there's no such thing. And then she'd kill me. Unless you have a crazy person who would literally kill you, which you don't. It's a figurative speech, which means it's a hyperbole because no one would actually kill you over that. Repetition is an easy one because it's repetition, repeating a word or a phrase. The highwayman came riding, riding, riding up to the old inn door. You have the word riding repeated multiple times. She cried and cried and cried until no more tears could flow. Some people think that might be a hyperbole, but you have to look at the repetition that's being used and ask yourself, what is the author trying to do with that? Onomatopoeia is your sound effect words. Those are pretty easy. You've got splat, ping, slap, pow, pop. All of those are sound effects. So if you're trying to create a sound or if the author's trying to get you to hear something to activate those five senses, they might use an onomatopoeia to kind of elevate your understanding. Symbolism is one of my all-time favorites. I love it. And when you start breaking down common symbols in literature, you're going to have such a different understanding of what you're reading. A symbol is an object that stands or represents for something else. We definitely have notes provided, so you can always use those. And if you can figure out a way to elevate or figure out a way to use symbolism in your work, you are going to have one awesome piece. And last but not least, I do believe we have imagery here. The word image is in the word imagery, and it's where you're creating images with words. The 5 senses should be activated. Seeing, touching, hearing, tasting, smelling, all of those things should be kind of elevated with the words you're using. It's very descriptive. So instead of just saying she ate food, you could say the blonde-haired, green-eyed lady was sloppily crunching on Lay's sour cream and cheddar potato chips, wiping the grease along her shirt. See how that works? Like you can get all of those senses kind of involved in that example. Let's quick review. He drew a line as straight as an arrow. What do you think? If you said it was a simile, you are correct. You've got the line being as straight as an arrow. You've got the words as your clue words. Knowledge is a kingdom, and all who learn are kings and queens. If you said this was a metaphor, you are correct because you're comparing knowledge to a kingdom. And the people who learn are kings and queens. The cynical sun was scalding our skin. Alliteration was not touched on, which I just remembered, but alliteration is amazing, and you definitely need to know it. It's the repeated beginning words or phrases. You've got cynical, sun, scalding, and skin all begin with the S sound. This is an easy one to incorporate into your writing and an easy one to identify, and if you can use it well, it will help create some sort of rhythm and a kind of a focus, and it will elevate your reader's appreciation for your work. Okay, so that's alliteration, repeated beginning consonant sounds. Those sounds that are repeated. Cynical, sun, scalding, skin, s. But you can do it with any letter. The flag wags like a fishhook there in the sky. If you said this was a simile, you would be correct because it is using the word like, and it's comparing the flag wags to a fishhook there. All right, I'd rather take baths with a man-eating shark or wrestle a lion alone in the dark. Eat spinach and liver, pet 10 porcupines, and tackle the homework my teacher assigns. I thought that was adorable. All of those are examples of, think of those kind of people that are hyper and they're exaggerating. This is a hyperbole. Ravenous and savage from its long polar journey, the north wind is searching for food. I ask myself, do winds actually search for food? Probably not, which means it is personification. The clouds smiled down on me. Again, last time I checked, clouds really can't smile. They can be really pretty. So if clouds are smiling, humans are smiling, people are smiling, it must be personification. Splat, onomatopoeia. She is as sweet as candy. Comparing two things, using like or as, simile. I could sleep forever. No, you can't unless you're dead. That would make it a hyperbole. The wheat field was a sea of gold. Gosh, that's pretty. That is a beautiful picture. Love hay bales and hay fields. If the wheat field is being compared to a sea of gold, I don't see the words as, I don't see the word like. It must be a metaphor. The streets called to him. Streets cannot talk. Streets cannot call. It must be personification. Pop! Onomatopoeia. She was as white as a ghost. Simile. She has a skeleton in her closet. Hyperbole, because no one has skeletons in their closet unless they're crazy. And again, we're talking about figurative language, not literal language. So there you go. If you have any questions on figurative language, please make sure you come see me. We're going to review it one more time. You can rewatch this video anytime if you have any questions, and hopefully you're ready to go for any quiz or writing or reading assignment that you have coming up. Good luck. Come see me if you need anything, and happy reading and writing.